Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nikki Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think, and slate, dropping unrealistic man, 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the millie, never hear me preach, look on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals that feel the day. Good morning, folks. Good morning. It is around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on a Thursday, and this is a rarity where your boy's going live to discuss the Philadelphia Eagles midweek. Now, I've been doing a lot of these streams, pumping them out on my own channel, but we're going to try doing this a little differently. We're going to do it both on the Hardcore Sports Network and my channel. We're going to test the waters and see how this one goes, folks. So without any further ado, folks, let's dive on into it and let's get a discussion going, shall we? So with that being said, all right, we're going to talk first about the Eagles and Packers. We're going to recap it a little bit, maybe give it another minute or so. Let a few people come into the chat, but your boy's going to break it down. We're going to talk about the Eagles and Packers in just a minute, folks. So give it one moment. We'll have a nice little discussion about this and take it from there. So now let me check something real quickly. Going to share this bad boy out and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to talk about the Monday night game between the Eagles and Packers. Now, I talked about it a little bit on my channel. I'll talk about on my channel in a short immediately after the game when I was literally ready to crash out and go to sleep. And then I talked about it. And then I talked a little bit about it on the 3-point blitz the next day on Tuesday. We had a nice little discussion, talk about the game. I mostly touched up on how it was a defensive struggle and then left it at that. But now we're going to talk a little bit more about it. So we're going to start off Eagles in week 10, moved on, advanced to 7 and 2, defeating the Green Bay Packers. Now in a tie for first place in the NFC with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, we'll talk more about that being in tie for home field advantage if that holds up in December, because really that's when it's going to matter most. That's when the games that matter most as far as playoff seeding is concerned. But as far as this game goes, we won the game, and we did move to 7 and 2, so that's a positive. Jalen Phillips looked good in his first game as a Philadelphia Eagle. He came in and made a difference. He was productive, producing 6 tackles. Yeah, and we kind of had a feeling that as Eagles fans, especially those of us that knew that, hey, he was familiar with Vic Fangio, we knew ultimately that, hey, this guy was going to end up producing. We knew it wasn't just going to be eased into the system. We knew he was going to come out there, ball out, and take care of business. And that's ultimately what he did. He was very productive because he was familiar with Vic Fangio. Remember Fangio was defensive coordinator in Miami for a little bit. And all of a sudden you bring Jalen Phillips over, you insert him into a scheme with a defensive coordinator he's had some history with. Vic Fangio knows how to Jalen Phillips' strengths and weaknesses. He knows how to incorporate him into the lineup. And that's certainly what happened on Monday night. And that played a key role in helping our defense hold the Packers to only 7 points. Because when you look at this Packers offense, we did an excellent job stopping them, particularly in that air game, because we held them down. Our secondary was actually doing good. We were shutting them down. We were forward. We got a lot of pressure on Jordan Love and forced him to make some mistakes, and ultimately that played a key role in us winning this game. You saw a lot of plays where he was trying to connect with Dobbs and his guy. He was trying to connect with them, and you saw, we were swatting the ball away. There were even a few drops which worked in our favor as well, but we got a lot of pressure up front. We especially remember that first drive, Josh Jacobs was running like crazy. It was every play. There was a set of plays on that first offensive drive for the Packers where it was run with Jacobs, run with Jacobs, run with Jacobs, run with Jacobs. And it looked like, oh, we got our hands full. Josh Jacobs is going to be tough to stop. But after several plays of Josh Jacobs dominating, the Packers are like, okay, we got to give Jacobs a break. Let's try to go with the pass game. Packers went into that play thinking, okay, we got him with the run game. We can get him with the pass. And what did we do? We brought the heat on Jordan and Love, and we got a sack, dropped him behind the line of scrimmage, took him out of field goal range. And that's how that was the main play that stopped them from scoring points on the first drive. So it's those plays such as that sack on the opening drive that the defense did in this game that made a huge difference. It's not just, oh, okay. It's not just it's those little plays like that one sack on the opening drive that took away from everything else the Packers did prior to that. Took away from all the running, all the big runs they had, all the, it was that one play right there that took everything away. That took all that momentum away, and boom, everything moved in our favor. Yeah, sure, they went 9 down the field, got 9 plays, but ultimately it was that, what was it? It It was that Jalix Hunt sack that got him for 11-yard loss, forced Jordan Love to pass, an incomplete pass. And unfortunately, when that pass attended for for Watson, Mitchell was injured. I was a worrying moment when Quinyon Mitchell went down. David, what is up? What is up? We got David in the chat, a loyal supporter of my live streams. What is up? Hope you're having a great Thursday morning. And we're here talking about the Eagles. And, man, I remember those sin. When Quinyon Mitchell went down that opening play, every Eagles fan I know was worried. They were like, oh, no, what's catching our breath? Now, fortunately, he did return. We were all right. But then we go down the field. We have a long drive. We're ready to score. And it's looking like, oh, snap. It's like we're looking, oh, shit, we're in the red zone. We're going to score here. And all of a sudden, Hurts goes up the middle. But then, he's stripped. It was Cooper. So what was his first? Was it Edgerrin Cooper? He stripped them, and then Nixon got the recovery, and we're like, all right. But at the same time, it was like, all right, we did move down the field. So I was disappointed it didn't result in points, but I was still optimistic the way we moved the ball to open drive. Like, all right, we moved the ball downfield. We just unfortunately had a bad block play at the end with that fumble. It's all right. We'll put it behind us. And then came the second quarter. It was just nothing going in the second quarter. No points at all. And it wasn't until the open. So it's like, all right, we got no points at all. But then at the same time, I was a little bit optimistic because we got the ball to start the second half. And ultimately, when you look at what ended up happening, ultimately getting the ball to start the second half paid out in our favor. We went down the field 10 plays, got a field goal, got the first points of the game. So it's like, all right, that's nice. We got ourselves some points. And then we stopped the Packers. We forced the turnover on downs the next drive. And then pretty much most of those first two drives took up most of the third quarter. And then we going into the fourth quarter, we're up 3-0. It's like, all right, this is a very ugly game, but we're still winning. It's like, if we can just get some points in this fourth quarter, because I knew we got to get some points because I'm like, we're not going to shut out the Packers. Especially with Josh Jacobs, the way he was their most efficient offensive player of the game. I'm like, nah, we're not getting a shutout. We got to score some points in the fourth quarter. I just knew in the back of my mind, we got to do it. And guess what happened? We went out there first drive of the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts hits Devontae Smith with the deep bomb, and he gets a 36-yard touchdown. We up 10-0. So it's like, all right, we did get that touchdown we needed. And lucky thing we got that touchdown too, because turn around the next drive, guess what? The Packers go right down the field. Josh Jacobs scores a touchdown. And then it's 10-7. It's like, we got ourselves a game here, folks. Something was a little bit concerning. Like, we got ourselves a game. We got to watch out here. And sure enough, at that point, it was like, yeah. Now it's 10-7. It's like, we got to be careful here. And then after that, though, then came at the end of the game. It was that we got that one drive. Saquon Barkley helped run down the clock. Get a few nice plays. We got a few first downs out of it. Things were looking pretty solid. But then all of a sudden, Kevin Patullo does this weird play call because we're not really in position to punt the ball, but it would have been a really long field goal for Elliott, so we decided to go for it. I'm thinking maybe we're trying to force them to jump, try to get them to go offside because we tried it earlier in the game and it worked out in our favor. So I'm thinking maybe they're trying to get the Packers to jump, make it a 4th and short, and then maybe we're going to try to have Hurts run up the middle, get the first down, and then wind out the clock that way. But instead, what happens is we end up snapping the ball. Well, first, we called that timeout. Then we decided to come back. But remember, we had a timeout, so we had some time to think about it and be like, all right, here's what we want to do. I understand why the Eagles kind of went for it there, even though we were winding out the clock. But at the same time, we're trying to wind out the clock. And the Eagles get going all for nothing risk on that drive. We go for, Hurts throws a deep ball to AJ. It's an incomplete pass, and ultimately it ended up being a turnover on downs, but it was still just the dumbest play call in that situation. I mean, I could have understood if we tried to run with Hurts and have him get the first down with his feet and continue winding out the clock, or if we try to throw a slant route or something, or an in and out, something, we're trying to get a curl route past the first down marker, something like that. But instead, we tried to go all for nothing risk to A.J. Brown to the end zone, ended up being an incomplete pass, and that nearly cost us the game. That could have. But fortunately, the very next drive after the turnover on downs, the Eagles defense came through. Fortunately, we were able to keep them. I mean, there was only a little time on the clock left. There was like 59 seconds. There was less than a minute left in the game. So fortunately, we're doing all right. But then it was like, all right, I'm back, folks. And as I was saying, to close up what I was saying about the game itself. Then we get that dumb play call. And you're wondering, what the hell were they doing? The Eagles just they tried to throw a deep ball on the fourth down like they were losing or trying to go for the win in a tied game when they were winning by a field goal. Then they give the Packers the ball back. They were able to march into field goal position. So then the Packers, after getting in the field goal position, mind you, so they seem like they're in field goal position, kind of. They send Brandon McManus out. We do the wise thing, call a timeout to ice him. But then McManus, they take the snap beforehand, The kick falls real short. So then the Packers decide, less than 10 seconds left, they decide they're going to try to run one more play toward the sideline, try to get a few extra yards to get closer. That doesn't work. So then they figured, all right, we got nothing to lose. Their offense hadn't been efficient all game in the passing game. So they decide to try one more time with McManus. What happens is when we get a hand on the kick ends up getting blocked, kind of blocked. And then ultimately we end up stealing away with the win. The kick ends up coming nowhere near the uprights. And that's how the game ends, folks. Off a completely if like a botched field goal into the wind. Eagles win. We're off to 7-2 in a 10-7 battle. Now, as far as this game goes, got two ways to look at it. On one hand, this was a defensive battle. This was two really good defenses going out there, kept it a low-scoring game. And to be fair, there was part of it. Then there was, on the flip side, the fact that the offenses couldn't really do much. But to be fair, in a really cold weather game, this kind of can happen. It happened with but at the same time, I feel like it was part really good defense because the Packers do have an excellent defense. We've seen that throughout the season. That's been the strong suit of their team thus far. Week 1, when they defeated the Lions, that was their strong point. We saw it even in the games they lost, like the game to us. You look before that, week 9 against the Panthers. Look at the loss against the Browns. In all 3 of the Packers' losses, they were all low-scoring games where their defense did really good. So I'm not questioning this defense. So only being able to score 10 points. On one hand, we scored 10 points. We're going against a really good defense. But on the other hand, this was a situation where we, as the Philadelphia Eagles, we were ultimately going against. We still are a better all-around team than the Cleveland Browns and Carolina Panthers. So even though on one hand we were going against a really good defense, at the same time we should have been able to score more than 10 points against them. I feel like play calling did to some degree play a role in it. We kind of went back to the not having A.J. Brown involved in the passing game. And unfortunately, we're in a situation where because A.J. Brown wasn't really getting involved, and his words of encouragement were to people of fantasy owners were, look, delete me from your fantasy team because there's not going to be as much production from me. Now, this could once again be it's kind of like the similar situation we saw before. But in this case, A.J. Brown didn't say anything directly. He didn't say anything directly about the team. Last time he kind of hinted at the idea he wasn't happy with his production. The offense said, if you don't feel heard, quietly withdraw. But in this case, all A.J. Brown said was, look, if you got me as a fantasy owner, I suggest not using me. Kind of hinting at the idea of, look, I'm not going to get as much production as you think I'm going to get. It's not going to be the best for your fantasy league. Now, on one hand, that could be considered a little bit selfish from some people's perspective, and understandably so. But at the same time, he wasn't taking shots at the organization in any way, shape, or form. He was really just talking to fantasy owners, if anything. But unfortunately, the media is going to talk about it. Unfortunately, in this 24/7 news cycle, they're looking for stuff to talk about. They're going to come on here, talk about it, make a big spiel of it. Got Nick in the chat, Steve's Nation stands up. And I was looking around on X/Twitter, one Eagles fan on there from the Philly area, Matt Walsh, who's a follow, commented on a post about the A.J. Brown deal and said, I wish the media would sometimes just shut up. And I feel the same way. And let's be honest, a lot of times, now this isn't the sole contributor, but a lot of times the media plays a role in situations becoming a big deal. They look for stuff to talk about. They look for a tweet or comment at a press conference, make a big spiel of it. And that's how simple comments become a bigger deal. Because that's what happens when you sometimes get players listening to the media. They're paying attention to what's being said. They hear other analyst perspectives. They hear a comment their teammate made being spread out all over the news. They see it all over social media, and that causes it to become a bigger deal. And that's unfortunately the downside of the 24/7 news cycle. The thing is, anything that you say when you're a public figure, whether you're an athlete, an actor, and you're a singer or whatever, any sort of entertainer, any sort of athlete, public figure, period, anything you say could be put out there, especially in the 24/7 news cycle where you got sports media, you got local news, you got celebrity gossip like TMZ, you got political news, you got so much news out there. If you're a big public figure, anything you say can be used to get a reaction out there. Hell, not just that, but even YouTube as well, where you got people in their house recording content. I mean, there's so much. We're in the information, we're in the media day and age. You can put anything out there. That's the unfortunate side with these players. Anything they say can become a big deal. Now, me on one hand, I just say, oh my God, I do kind of wish they would shut up too, because they're going to make a much bigger deal out of this and make this into a big spectacle that it doesn't really need to be into. Now, is it true that A.J. Brown's production dipped? Yes. But to be fair, remember, this was only one game too. Prior to the bye week, A.J. Brown was getting more productive and he was getting more looks in the offense. He was being utilized more. His production went up from the first couple weeks. And then after one game, on one hand, I don't really think it was a smart idea for A.J. Brown to put out that tweet. I do think on one hand he should stop tweeting about it. I think he should either have a journal entry or find someone to talk to outside of the Eagles organization instead of tweeting about it. At the same time, the media needs to stop talking all the time, but we know that's not going to happen. We know they love to talk and they're just going to keep doing it. They're going to keep looking for things to talk about. They're going to look for little stories to blow out of context, make a big deal out of just to get something to talk about. And unfortunately, look, there's nothing we can do about it. But, hey, that's just the way it goes, man. That's the way it is. But at the end of the day, though, I don't want this to become a big story because ultimately it's a distraction. It is a distraction from the rest where we're going the rest of the season. It's a distraction from focusing on this upcoming matchup against the Lions. And it takes away from Jaelan Phillips' excellent performance, first game as a Philadelphia Eagle. Instead of talking about what Jaelan Phillips did and how he fit well in this defense, instead we're talking about A.J. Brown in a tweet. That, let's be honest, wasn't even a direct shot at the organization, like I said. Instead of focusing on, okay, this is what happened. Instead, so I'm going to switch gears. I'm not going to give this story too much time. I'm going to be the one that takes my own advice and decides to talk about the other factors that came out of this week, such as, let's talk about Saquon Barkley for a bit. Now, Saquon didn't have the greatest statistical game, but if you look at his performance, he played a key factor in this game. He had 60 total yards on 22 carries, which isn't great, but it's still efficient. And he had 3 receptions for 41 yards total. So Saquon Barkley was still productive in this offense. He still played a role in us keeping the book, especially on that drive, even in the drive with that 4th down. Even though it ended with that stupid play call with us trying to go for the end zone on a 4th down up late in the game, Saquon Barkley played a role in us getting in position to wind down the clock and give the Packers less time. But that was the drive before that, excuse me. Now, so that was the drive before we got the fumble on the Packers, which set up that 4th down, that unnecessary going for it on 4th down. But the drive before that, Saquon Barkley ran the ball. Not great, but he ran the ball good enough to help take time off the clock and ultimately give the Packers less time. So late in the game, you see that drive there. It was he played a key role in that. Sure, it may not be the greatest statistical performance, but it's not necessarily about that. Ultimately, it's about his production in that drive. He helped wind down the clock for us. That played a key role. Said he had 3 receptions, which makes me I do think they should try to utilize Saquon a little bit more in the passing game. Now, I know he's not a wide receiver, so he's not going to be the main guy, but we saw on 3 receptions, he had 41 yards. And even we go back to the rematch against the Giants in week 8, he had a receiving touchdown in that one as well. So we do know that Saquon Barkley can be solid in the passing game too. Maybe he's not, even when he's not having the greatest running days, you can still utilize him in the passing game. We've seen this before. We've seen running backs that may not always have the greatest stats on the ground can still be efficient in the pass game for offense. Remember, Darren Sproles was great in screen passes for the Eagles. That was his strength right there. Even if he didn't always have the greatest stats in the world, he was still efficient for us, especially in those screen plays. You remember Brian Westbrook, he was great for us on those plays. And Saquon, even though he doesn't get a lot of receptions, when he does get receptions, he can be efficient in that role. So we've seen there's a history of running backs that can effectively fill their role in the passing game. Remember Reggie Bush for the Saints? He was efficient in the passing game too on those short yard passes from Brees. So point is, we've seen running backs can be efficient in that role, and Saquon is no different. So I would like to see them try to utilize Saquon in the pass game a little bit more. I mean, obviously he's not going to be the main target in the pass game, but I would like to see them try to incorporate those type of plays a little bit more into the offense. Now the defense, like I said, this was a good performance by the defense. Now on one hand, it was against the struggling Packers offense, but hey, we did our thing. We got 2 fumbles in this one. We were able to force a fumble on Josh Jacobs, which helped out there. We see Jaelan Phillips had total of 6 tackles, including 1 for a loss. So Jaelan Phillips came in here and made a difference. And he didn't get any sacks. He did get 2 hits on Jordan Love. So he came in here right away and proved to be a positive factor in Vic Fangio's defense. So this was definitely so far proved to be a worthy signing. And plus, he did have a fumble recovery as well. Let's not forget. So this was a nice debut for Jaelan Phillips in the midnight green. Well, technically white, but you know what I mean. But solid debut for Jaelan Phillips as a Philadelphia Eagle. Looking forward to more of it. We had that right there. And like I said, the defense's ability to get pressure, we saw it here in this one. You had much more efficient. You had him. You had Jalen Carter in there. Jalix Hunt got a sack. Nakobe Dean got a sack. All around, this was a good performance. But the biggest concern on defense is the ability to stop the run, because we saw Josh Jacobs was easily by far the best part in this offense. He had 21 carries for 74 yards, a touchdown including 11-yarder, and he had 5 receptions for 33 yards, including. So Josh Jacobs was actually their most effective player in the passing game for this one. So that draws me to the Lions game now. Now we're going from playing the Packers, where their running back Josh Jacobs was their strong point, but not just that. But remember, all season long we've been struggling. We gave up 100+ yards the first time around when we went against Cam Scatterby. We gave 100+ yards on the ground to the Broncos. Even against the Bucs too in that win. So the Eagles' ground game hasn't been the most efficient in the league, and that draws some big flags. That draws some concerns. So there's that to be concerned with. So now we going into this game against the Detroit Lions, and this is where we're going to switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the Lions. Now, you're talking about a Detroit Lions team where their run ground game, they have the best 1-2 duo in the NFL currently. You have Jahmyr Gibbs, who's been dominating this past couple seasons, including winning NFC Offensive Player of the Week for his performance against the Commanders. So you got him, and then not just that, but also right behind him, you got David Montgomery, who helps add to that team, who's an excellent excellent number 2 back. And for this Eagles defense that's been struggling against the ground game, that's a red flag going against the Detroit Lions. If we take a look real quick, I'm going to show you Jahmyr Gibbs' stats real quick. So we're going to share the screen real quick. You're going to see right here. Let's take a look against the Commanders. This is where he won NFC Offensive Player of the Week, Week 10, 15 carries, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, the Vikings, he didn't really get going there, that one, but look at the Buccaneers, 17 carries, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. And then you saw against the Browns, 91 yards, 94 against the Bears, even at 67 yards, and still got 2 touchdowns against the Ravens. Those 2 touchdowns play a key role. He still has 693 yards on the ground for the season. So he's been he's been doing his thing. And then we also got David Montgomery too. And let's take a look. David Montgomery, the number 2 back against the Commanders team. He had 15 carries as a number 2 back, 71 yards. Those are number 1 running back stats. Against the Vikings, still had 40 yards and 11. Against the Bengals, he had 65. Against the Ravens, he was the lead back. 12 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. So we see by these stats, they're not the greatest in the world, but there are from those games from time to time, David Montgomery can have himself for number 1 running backs type of game. And going against an Eagles defense that struggled against the run, that's a big room for concern there. And that's a golden opportunity for the Detroit Lions to absolutely destroy this Eagles running game. But then they also, and this is another concern too, against the pass game. Now, while we did shut down the Packers in the Week 10 matchup, now you turn around Week 11 and going against the Detroit Lions, you're dealing with an entirely different offense for a defense that a secondary has struggled. We got 2 guys for a secondary. One of those guys is Jaire Alexander, who announced on Tuesday he's stepping away from football to focus on his physical and mental well-being. So he came in, Eagles brought him in, hoping he'd help the secondary, only for him to walk aside. He's going to walk away from football temporarily or maybe permanently. But I think it's going to be temporary. But the point being is, here's a guy who we brought in hoping he would help out, but unfortunately, he's not even going to be there. So our secondary are really down as far as new blood goes, hoping Michael Carter III pans out, and he's an upgrade. Now, do I think he could be an upgrade? Absolutely. Especially over Quinyon Mitchell. No, not over Quinyon. Well, especially over Kelee Ringo and Adoree Jackson. That's why we went and got these guys before the trade deadline. And unfortunately, one of those guys is not going to be there. So now, fingers being pointed over. Now, Michael Carter's going to have to step up. It's your time to shine going against the Detroit Lions. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, Laporta. You're going against the really good Detroit Lions pass off. Really good Detroit Lions all-around offense. You got to stop them both on the ground and in the air. And this is just one of those games, I think, the way the Eagles defense has looked so far, the Detroit Lions match up really well. And that's why on the fantasy pick'ems, a lot of people were picking the Detroit Lions. I think it was a majority on the pick'ems. It was like 53% picking the Lions to win this game. And I understand why, because theoretically, this is a really good matchup for the Detroit Lions going against their defense, because our defense has had its weak points this season. So there's that to be concerned with. And I mean, the keys in this one, you're going to have to match up Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper Dixon. You're going to match up Quinyon Mitchell, and for that number 2 corner, get Michael Carter in there, trying to match these guys up man-to-man against the top Detroit Lions receivers because that's going to be your best shot in this one. So that's your concern right there. And let's see, I'm going to take him. Plus, we also remember Lane Johnson was injured. He left the game against the Packers, then came back. Now, going to look at the injury report. I don't know if he. And right now we got Cam Jurgens is questionable. Lane Johnson's questionable going into this one. So we don't even know if they're going to play or if they're going to be at 100%. And that's going to be a big concern too in this Lions matchup. And our defense, though, for the most part is healthy. So that's a positive sign right there. But unfortunately, like I said, we've had our struggles. So it's not going to work. Now we look at the Lions. You got Laporta's questionable. Taylor Decker, the left tackle's questionable. Penny Sewell, questionable. Aiden Hutchinson, questionable. Kirby Joseph, questionable. But now it's hated. But then again, you got that Detroit Lions defense of healthy Aiden Hutchinson going against an Eagles battered offensive line. This is a concerning matchup for us. This looks like a potential trap game on paper. So Eagles have a lot of work to do. They're going to have to make a lot of adjustments for this particular matchup against the Detroit Lions. You got the Detroit Lions ranked, and then this is the Detroit Lions defense that has 30 sacks on the season. They're fourth in the league right now with 30 sacks on the season. So that's a big room for concern. And they've also forced 6 turnovers as well. So this Detroit Lions defense is really well. They're a well-rounded team. Now, even though we have the better record, I feel like the Lions match up better against us based off the way both teams have played thus far this season. We've seen the Eagles' strengths and weaknesses. Now, this just seemed but the Eagles base, unless they make some big adjustments, this could be an annihilation, but the Eagles got to make some changes and get it together. I mean, that pass rush, if they can get some pass rush on the Lions, that could give them a chance because we saw them be able to do so efficiently on Monday night against the Packers. Now, you got to be able to take that, do it the same against the Lions. Get some pass rush on these guys. Make Goff get rid of the ball. Don't give them too much time to be comfortable in the pocket. That could at least help out a bit. Another thing in this one, we got to get the play calling in sync on this one. Look, is it like the short yardage situation? That's when we got to run the ball, pass on long plays, or try to get Jalen Hurts to make some plays on more plays on his feet if needed to in this one. And we got to start getting A.J. Brown more involved because we've seen this season, the last couple games, when A.J. Brown was more involved in the offense, we were more potent, we were more efficient, particularly against the Vikings and the Giants. Now, we got to be able to do some of that, incorporate it here into this one, but especially with this Detroit Lions pass rush that's generated 30 sacks, you're going to have to rely on Jalen Hurts to make some plays with his feet as well. And like I said, going back to what I said, piggyback earlier, try to get Saquon a little bit more involved in the passing game. This would be a perfect opportunity to do so in this matchup here against the Detroit Lions. Get Saquon a little bit more involved in the passing game. Get him involved in some screen passes. Let him make some plays that way as well. Now, we still want to try. You can try to use those short yard passes, kind of like what the Drew Brees, Tom Brady deal, where usually when you do a lot of passes, you start with some shorter plays. Go 2 yards, 3 yard passes. Start to slowly wear down the defense, get them on guard for the short pass, then open up some lanes for some 10, 11-yard passes. That's how Brees and Brady picked apart defenses precisely for years. Kevin Patullo should try to make that adjustment. That's something we haven't really done all season, but in this case against Detroit Lions, going against a formidable team on both sides of the ball. That would be one adjustment to make, especially being that this defense, we might have to rely on, I'm thinking most likely our best shot at beating them is a shootout. Because like I said, our ground game, our run defense hasn't been that great. You're going against the best number one, number two running back duo in the NFL currently with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. So you got to be a little more prepared to possibly have a shootout here. And our secondary, we don't know how Michael Carter III is going to fit in yet. We still got to wait and see. We rely on our most reliable weapons are Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. As long as they're on the field, we at least rely on them to help a little bit. But going against LaPorta and that team, you're going to need a little bit more than that. You're going to need Michael Carter to step up and say, hey, this is your time. You know, you've had some time to practice with the team. Get in there, make a difference for us. We saw your flashes of potential with the Jets. Now show it. But with the Eagles, though, like I said, I think you're going to have to score a lot of points in this one to win this game. You're going to have to become a little more – the play calling's definitely got to make some changes in this one. You got to adjust. But even though, obviously, you know, even though I ride with the Eagles, I'm thinking – I said in my pick'ems, I think the Lions might win this one. Obviously, I want the Eagles to win. I want them to prove me wrong, but I could see the Lions winning this matchup. I could. Now, obviously, I want the Eagles to win it, but same time, I'm going to make my pick in this one realistically. I'm going to say I have the Lions winning this game by a score of, say, 30-20. I hope I'm wrong. I hope the Eagles go out there and capitalize off what I said they do. Real quickly, going to review some of my keys to victory is, number one, we got to adjust the play calling like I've seen before. That's one thing we got to do right there. Because we're, like I said, it might not the best matchup for our defense, so we're going to have to rely on our offense to step up and try to outscore them. That'd be one way to do it. Unfortunately, with tying back to my prediction, I don't realistically see that happening, but beside the point. Number one, we got to adjust the play call. Make some of those tweaks, like I said. Lon Hurts to make some more plays with his feet. Try to start with some shorter passes, then incorporate some longer passes. That would be one key to victory. Another key is we got to come in. We got to have our guys on the field healthy. Like, we got to be able to have Lane Johnson, Cam Jurgens, and those guys, Landon Dickerson, Quinyon Mitchell. They all got to be on the field playing and healthy because a lot of these guys are questionable as of today. But it is still Thursday, though. We're not going to get the full injury report yet. But that's another key in this one because you're going against a top team, especially on the offensive line. We got to be healthy on the offensive line. We got to have our guys available for this game because you're going against that Aiden Hutchinson-led defense. When he's on the field, they wreak havoc on offenses. So you got to have them healthy. That's the second key to victory in this one. And the third key to victory is we can't turn the ball over. I mean, we did have that one fumble against the Packers, but that was just a one-off. Now, here we go. You're going against the Detroit Lions in a game, and what's going to be the toughest game, which on paper is the toughest game of the season. We got to be able to maintain control of the ball. So those are my main three keys to victory for the Eagles in this one. So we got to wait and see what. So now, like I said, we still got today. We got tomorrow. We're going to see what the injury report indicates, and we'll ultimately see how it plays out. But like I said, we got plenty of time before. Like I said, we still got plenty of time for the game. I pretty much touched up on all the main points I wanted to talk about. I do want to briefly say, but before we go, about the Jair Alexander one. It's a shame because granted, Jair Alexander wasn't really doing much this season, but that also ties into the thing of Howie Roseman. Why did you go for Jair Alexander of all people? I mean, I kind of know why, because he was a guy that had a reputation as one of the better secondary players during the stint with the Packers. You figured, okay, maybe you bring him into a new system. he'll pan out, his productivity will go back up and increase. Maybe you think, oh, Ravens just wasn't the right fit for him. Maybe the Eagles will be. And we need some help with the secondary. His experience could bring us some help. So I get why they did it. I mean, the Eagles apparently, I guess, didn't realize that Jaire Alexander was one day away from walking out and walking away. That's the unfortunate side of it. We traded to get this guy, but, you know, like I said, he stepped away, and that's a shame. But, you know, it happens. So, I mean, all we can do at this point really is just hope for the best for the secondary. Hope Michael Carter works out. And ultimately, if Jaire Alexander really isn't all the way there, he's kind of doing us a favor by walking away, because the last thing you want is a guy in the locker room who was just there collecting a paycheck, who isn't all the way there mentally, possibly causing drama in the locker room. If he does step on the field, he's missing easy assignments, and that could mess with the chemistry of the defense. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise that Jaire Alexander ultimately chose to walk away while he still had the chance to. So I'm not necessarily upset with him on that one in that regard. It's a shame that we tried to bring him in for his veteran leadership, only for him to walk away. But at this point, it is what it is, man. So that's all I got for you guys for today on this one. To everyone that joined in, thanks for joining this impromptu Thursday stream. David, who's always been loyal, thank you for your support in the chat as always. Nick for coming in. Appreciate you guys' support. Now we just got to wait and see what happens. Come back, talk about it. Maybe on Monday after the game, I'll come talk about it, give you my thoughts on the Eagles' victory, or if we get a bit, or give thoughts of the Eagles win, give you thoughts victory. If we lose, just come on here and shoot what I think worked and what didn't work. Either way, we come back here probably Monday, talk about it, recap the Lions game. Then as Tuesday, it's the usual schedule, 3-Point Blitz, episode 35 at the new time, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I tried it as an experiment on Tuesday. It worked out. So we'll still be doing the 3-Point Blitz, but at a new start time, at noon Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays. And then at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you got NFL Pick'ems with me, Agent Warrior, exclusively on the Hardcore Sports Network. We're going to keep that thing going. We'll be sharing out content from the recent episode so you guys can catch our highlights, get you guys more amped for next week's episode of Pick'em. So with that being said, that's what I got for you guys today. Probably do some YouTube shorts as well. I'm going to have a few poll questions on my channel, so you can check that out. So until next time, it's your boy Nicky Stees signing off. Fly, Eagles, fly. Have a great day. Till next time, peace.